Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So over last couple of days I have uploaded full exploration guides for variant 7 chapters 1 and 2. Now it is high time we pay our attention to chapter 3, as that is the longest and the hardest one, well, arguably. Before we get to actually each path breakdown, we're going to take a look at our MVPs from science and cosmic class, which is what chapter 3 focuses about. So we obviously see that science heroes, in total we do have 21 of them, and some of the most hardworking champions for me personally were Immortal Hulk. Wasp did plenty of work. Quake would be an invaluable help. I made a point not to use her, but she would be supremely helpful. Then we have She-Hulk, Spider-Gwen, Red Guardian, Luke Cage, and we're actually looking quite well, quite solid here in science class, and I'm sure I didn't mention a couple of other champions. And in cosmic class now we have Cosmic Ghost Rider, who put in probably the most amount of work for me, partially probably because Captain Marvel movie version really does want that Nick Fury synergy to work well, and unfortunately can't bring Nick Fury in. Then we have Angela. OG Thor actually was quite cool to have, Vision Arcus and Medusa, and last but not least Hyperion. Hyperion is truly shining in this piece of content with improved ability accuracy. Right, now I will jump to 3.1 and we're going to go through path by path. So we're going to start on the left side over here, where we have Cosmic Wrath, Energize, Enhanced Special 2 and Special 2 Bias. And in all honesty, this path is relatively easy, especially because the defenders on the lane aren't too troublesome. Perhaps Warlock is somewhat annoying, and Hulkbuster can inflict you with shock, which can kind of sting. But all in all, there's not too much to know about the path. Just be aware that their level 2s will be unblockable, and ideally bait out level 1s. Now, with increased power gain, obviously, if you do have any resemblance of power control available to you, that will in fact be super helpful. Therefore, for instance, Cosmic Ghost Rider does quite a great job when you put on the power lock, and also Spider-Ham can do extremely well because opponents will be getting a lot of power and you will be able to trigger a lot of power stings. Right, moving on to the path here on the left side, Split Atom and Critical Resistance. So basically, you're going to be focusing on your science champions, and ideally science champions that does have access damage over time effects or can inflict damage in different ways. So the perfect option here once again is Quake, but I promise I will not keep mentioning Quake on purpose. Just keep in mind that Quake is going to be excellent for almost everything. There's going to be only one path where I specifically point out that you can use her, but in general, Quake can do a lot. So let's just put Quake in the pocket and remember her, whatever path we are talking about. Other than that, Spider-Ham, once again, he bypasses a critical resistance because his damage doesn't really rely on critting much. Then we have Wasp, because she has guaranteed crits, and there's absolutely no issue using Wasp. Now, Human Torch, mainly focuses on damage over time effects. So those would be the three biggest MVPs that I can name for you guys for this lane. Spider-Ham, Wasp, Human Torch, and Quake. Okay, anyways, let's get to this middle path where is Psychic Taunts and Life Transfer. This is the path that I designated as the quote-unquote easy path. And ideally, yeah, just bring in any Cosmic Champion and you will have a relatively good time and you will finish the lane with pretty much full health. And that is it. Just bring in your Cosmic Heroes and all will be sorted. Very straightforward, very simple lane. Not too many tricky defenders either. Be aware of that Magneto, I suppose. Let's carry on to the left side. Science Wrath, Split Atom, Critical Setup, and Crit Me with your best shot. Now, this entire lane seems to be very, very bugged, and there is some crazy interaction with the champion who shall not be named. But other than that, quite obviously, you do want to focus on your science champion, and as well, due to some weird Petrify bug, you do want to avoid Petrify effects if possible. Now, Crit Me with your best shot, however, disables most of the damage over time effects and stuff like power sting damage, things like that. But on the bright side, thanks to critical setup, you can kind of use any champion and you will have some moderate access to critical hits. Once again, Wasp works perfectly here because she does have guaranteed crits. And besides Wasp, other good options will probably involve Red Guardian can do some decent work here, and She-Hulk. She-Hulk's actually almost mandatory for this Man-Thing. Well, I'm not gonna say mandatory. I did end up once going through this fight with Thing and once with Wasp as well, but She-Hulk's probably the better option because you do have that guaranteed crit on every combo ender, and you gain these furies that let you hit exponentially harder. Be aware that you do need somebody that's poison immune, ideally, or somebody like Thing or Red Guardian for this fight, so you are not getting poisoned to death. But other than being aware of Man-Thing for this lane, it's kind of annoying, but it really isn't the worst, thanks partially to the critical setup. And the path on the left side, now it has Size Matters, Micro Reflect, Particle Protector, and Runaway Express. So this is straight out of Variant 2 XL variant, and if you are remembering Variant 2, you will immediately remember that champion who shall not be named also absolutely crushes it. So does any champion who largely relies on heavy attacks. And in this instance in particular, considering that you're going to be going up against Mojo and Dormammu, Human Torch is the perfect choice, as well as She-Hulk can put in some great amount of work, She-Hulk being large character and you are being able to throw your heavy attacks freely. Also, obviously, Hyperion and Thor, both of them are large champions that can freely use their heavies and special attacks, so that is something to note. But other than that, we still have Immortal Hulk, who was supremely helpful, and you can bring in Captain America Infinity War, who also relies on his heavy attacks to further advance his play. So yeah, you do not necessarily have access to these extra large champions like Thing or Immortal Hulk. You can get through this fight either through this lane, either with champions that rely on heavy attacks, or with Quake, or large champions by dropping heavies and specials. So all that being said, it's time we take a look at Venom. Venom wasn't really the hardest boss, especially because we had already seen this guy, and it's pretty much a copy-paste from before. Some of the best options that I personally used or heard people use on this guy would be Spider-Ham. Spider-Ham does insanely good because, once again, Venom has superbly increased power gain, and because of that, he's going to be throwing a lot of special attacks, and he just dies quickly. Besides Spider-Ham, we have She-Hulk, and her taunt mechanic is going to be extremely helpful, and you're going to have absolutely no trouble refreshing your Furies because Venom is an extra large champion, and Furies stay longer, and increased power gain will make sure he always has a bar of power, so She-Hulk works phenomenally here. My personal weapon of choice for most part here was Immortal Hulk, because once I dropped the level 2, the fight was pretty much over. You could just nuke him down. But other than that, you still have Hyperion, and you can either go on your level 2 stun lock or just kind of like be superbly aggressive. And then there is Thor, who also has pretty much all but guaranteed stun chance in this variant if you bring in a full hero team, and you can blitz this fight down extremely quickly as well using Thor. So those are the best options here for this lane. Let's quickly move on to the next quest, because I know that your time is precious and we do have a lot to get through. So the final boss, Miles Morales, which we're going to get to at the very end. But before we do that, let's just start from the left side and move on to the right. Now, this whole great power, great responsibility lane for Spider-Man bullshit. It's relatively irrelevant. I could not be bothered, and I didn't find it worth even rereading what those champions do. Now, there is Strike Back, which is something to be aware of, but most importantly, there's also a breakthrough node available, and because it's breakthrough node, it means that any champion will eventually hit like a tank. And yeah, you can just quite literally bring in whatever champions you have ranked up, and that is the reason why this is the easy path. There are no overly tricky encounters, perhaps Mysterio, but again, just slow play it, and that's it. It really wasn't too big of a problem. If you have ever fought Mysterio before, and know that he doesn't really have any nodes that make the fight harder, and because of the increase in damage that you will be gaining, there's pretty much no need to throw special attacks anyways. So yeah, just be aware how to fight Mysterio. Now let's move on to this path: Cosmic Wrath, Stellar Pulse, and Buffed Up. Now this is actually also very straightforward and simple path. For few people, it might even be the easiest path to do, because almost every cosmic hero has access to a whole bunch of buffs. And once you do get there, you do have the 125% attack increase, And only champions that you really have to deal with really is Psycho Man and then perhaps Stealth with Spidey, but there are no real tricky encounters. When you're fighting Psycho Man, remember to read the instructions on the screen. You can't use heavy attack until you fill a bar of power. Then once you have filled the bar of power, you can't use a special attack, or you shouldn't, unless you already have a whole bunch of buffs. And then once you have filled 2 bars of power, you're kind of free to do anything you want up until you fill the 3rd one. But in general, Psycho Man wasn't that tricky of fight, considering that you're using a Cosmic Champion. Some of the MVPs for me personally, I just brought in double Cosmic Ghost Rider. I didn't want to mess about too much, but again, Hyperion will work phenomenal for this fight. Vision Arcus will put in some solid work as well. You can even bring in your Phoenix that you have ranked up for Prestige, or Angela, and buffed up will not be a problem, especially considering that buffed up is something that we have seen in Cosmic Champion chapters and Cavalier Quest a lot. So there is that. Now we have the middle pass, Stellar Pulse, which again signals that you should be using your Cosmic Champions. And then there's just Enhanced Special 1 and Specialist. And yeah, it's also a fairly straightforward fight. The hardest fight probably is the first fight, which is Darkhawk. Ideally, you do not want to really knock him down unless you're using Vision Arcus or unless you're using Medusa. But there are more than enough options. Once again, you can just bring in OG Thor, parry, and 3-hit combo him to death, or whoever you please. And it was overall fairly straightforward path once you get past that Darkhawk. And remember, since Darkhawk is the first fight on the path, you can just restart if you happen to mess up. Now this path, Split Atom, Smash Pulse, and Poison. Now this path really is annoying one. It really kind of pissed me off. Because obviously, because of Split Atom, you ideally want to use Science Champions. And then if you consider that you are kind of required to have Poison immunity, and you're looking at Hero Champions, there are exactly 4 champions in this game that you're quote-unquote meant to use. So the 4 champions obviously are the Hulks as signaled on the path, and those are only Science, Hero, Poison immune champions in game, as we can see by my filter system out here. And it sucks. It's very annoying. So without that, you strictly need to look for Poison immunity, also maybe perhaps in Cosmic class, in which case you obviously do have more options. You do have Hyperion, you do have Medusa, but you will be fighting with 50% reduced damage, which again is just annoying. It's not impossible, but it's annoying. So going back to filtering out the Hulks here, obviously for Mephisto, ideally you're meant to use Hulk Ragnarok. Now with 6-star rank 1, the fight is doable, but it is quite tricky and finicky. Actually, as I was myself doing that fight, I was like maybe still a bit asleep, and I had to redo it like 3 times because I always messed it up towards the end. It really is quite annoying. The alternate solution for this fight is Human Torch. Bring in Human Torch, activate your pre-fight ability, and yes, there is poison, and yes, poison will eventually kill you. But if your Human Torch is a rank 5 5-star, or rank 2 or higher 6-star champion, Human Torch will kill Mephisto before you die of poison. So yes, you bring in champion just for the one fight, but this fight is really annoying because the attack values are quite through the roof in this chapter 3, and Human Torch can definitely, absolutely destroy this Mephisto before you die yourself, and that is exactly what I would recommend doing. Bring in Human Torch if you have one. If you don't, then you have Immortal Hulk. If you don't have Immortal Hulk, you can still use stuff like She-Hulk or sorry, not Immortal Hulk, Hulk Ragnarok. You can still use She-Hulk, or you can still use Immortal Hulk, but it's a very rough fight and it's a very annoying fight, and I 100% hate this lane's design philosophy. But after that, on the bright side, once you get past Mephisto, there isn't anything too bad, except for the fact that, yeah, you're kind of like forced to use these 4 champions that we have in the game, and then towards then, do not forget that you're going to have to deal with this Ebony Maw with Flux Dispersal and Bane of Damballa. But still, if you do have Human Torch alive from that first encounter from Mephisto, then obviously Human Torch would be perfect option for that Mephisto. Sorry, not Mephisto. Brains all over the place, for that Ebony Maw. But yes, screw this lane. This is probably the most annoying lane in the entire chapter, and I really hate it by the way it is designed. Just because you kind of steered in the direction of using 4 very specific champions, and only one of whom is like really good taking that Mephisto fight. It just sucks, honestly. It's not fun time. Anyways, and on the right side we have Flux Dispersal and Bane of Damballa. And it's fairly straightforward lane. Again, the most noteworthy fight here will be the Ebony more towards the end, for whom you ideally want to use Human Torch. But also Wasp is a perfect option for this fight, as well as, I'm sure, more than a few other science champions, including Captain America Infinity War. And the key here is obviously just land your heavies frequently, and that is about it. So you want to use champions like Wasp, like She-Hulk, like Spider-Gwen, like Red Guardian, like Captain America Infinity War, who have no problem incorporating those heavy attacks in their rotation, or even Hyperion, for instance, who does the same. And that is the final quest. The boss, Miles Morales, honestly, the trick there is that you just don't want to use special attacks. That's about it. That is how I largely did the boss. I soloed him almost every single time with Hyperion and Hyperion alone. I played very carefully up until I got rid of 4 of his 5 await charges, and then I got a bit more aggressive. The key thing to know in this fight against Miles will be the enhanced special that you must be able to wait. That special one, unless you're obviously using the Quake. Speaking of Quake, by the way, Quake is capable of doing this Mephisto fight as well. Almost forgot to give Quake a shot. This is the one time I said I will mention the champion's name, because if you are charging heavy attack, that poison will not apply as you are charging the heavy, and eventually you will get poisoned, but Quake having class advantage, you can still get through that fight. So Quake is another option that's technically not meant to work, but definitely will work. Anyways, now that Quake talk is over, as I said, you can pretty much use any champion, keeping in mind that Cosmic Champions will have 125% damage increase, so you can very easily use whichever Cosmic Champion. Doesn't necessarily require you to use too many special attacks. At the same time, Strike Back, Flux Dispersal, and Hard Knock Life do make this fight significantly trickier. You do want to parry, but you don't want to parry because you want to parry to land your heavy attacks, but you don't want to parry to take that block damage from Hard Knock Life. But there is another, obviously, science champion that lands the heavy attacks very easily, which is Wasp. So Wasp is a fantastic option here, even though you do not get the damage increase. So is She-Hulk. So is Spider-Gwen, I believe, because you can maintain slow throughout the entire fight. So there are definitely options. It really isn't as bad of a boss. It kind of depends which way you approach. You can either go use your special attacks normally and use a slow champion, consistently disabling his evades, or just take the easy route. Don't use special attacks, and you don't have any evade to worry about at all, and you just need to monitor that Flux Dispersal. Overall, not too bad of a quest outside of those couple of lanes. But yeah, that is it. If I missed anything superbly important, let me know about that in the comment section. But other than that, I hope this video is super helpful to you guys, or at the very least somewhat helpful. But that is it, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information